Hi, I'm Owen. Matt asked if I could do a little studio tour of my space, so let's go and have a look. So as you come into the studio, you come straight into this little kitchenette area where we've kind of got everything you need during the session. Obviously microwave, coffee machine, kettle, all that kind of stuff, and then there is a bathroom through here. What's good about this room is it creates a sound block from the control room and the live room to outside, that we actually made these walls to such a spec that you could mic up a guitar amp in here and you'd hear relatively little outside. So let's go through and have a look at the control room next. This is the control room. We'll start off just having a look at a bit of the design. It's mostly absorption in this room. We've got absorption on the walls, ceiling and the back of the room. And then at the front, we've got this slate wall, which makes things a little bit reflective to make it more comfortable to work in. At the back of the room, there are some huge bass traps. These run about 4 meters up to the ceiling, and they're hanging traps, which are really, really effective. These windows are angled, so any reflections from the monitors are thrown to the back of the room. However, your first reflection points actually hit into the absorption on the side here. So although you wouldn't think having windows next to you is a good idea, they actually don't pose any problems, and this room measures up incredibly well. So we'll have a little look at some of the equipment in here now. I'm a big guitar guy. I really like guitar amps, so I've got a selection mainly of high gain amps, and then I've also got loads of different pedals. I really like to play around with sounds with bands and make sessions as fun as possible. Something new that I've just added is this Ural kit switch, which allows me to switch between any of these heads, and then I can send that signal either to my load box or through to the cabs next door. Then if we take a look down at the front end at some of the equipment here, the Audient is the centerpiece of the studio, so it's 24 channel Audient ASP 8024, really reliable desk, super clean, really detailed preamps, useful EQ. Coming across to my sidecars here, on this side this is kind of focused on EQ and preamps, but at the top we've got a little bit of guitar gear. I've got the rack tuner, which obviously is super important. I have that actually routed to an auxiliary on my desk, and I always take a guitar DI, so that is always live when I'm tracking, so I can keep an eye on tuning. Below that I've got the React IR box, and that's a load box and then also an IR loader. Most of the time now I'm tracking guitars through this rather than cabs, just because of the ease of recall and how quickly we can get set up and get a sound dialed in. I really like this as a workflow. Below this here is my Focusrite ISA, so 4 channels of ISA pre's, super clean. I've had that for years and years. In fact, I bought that in my very first studio, and that's one of the few pieces of gear that stayed with me. We then moved down to these AML Pultecs. These are absolutely incredible. I love them on my master bus, the little yellow marks in there, and kind of my master bus settings, but I also use them quite often when I'm tracking vocals and bass. When we come down here, we've got a little bit more AML. This time is the AML 1073s. So these are kind of my money shop preamps. So vocals go through these, guitars go through these. But I also like to use these as a hardware insert on mixers, because I really like this EQ across a guitar bus. After that, we come down into 500 series world. So on the top rack, I've got 4 API 512 style preamps, and they're from a company called AVD Audio. Now, I like to do a bit of DIY, so they're just something I built a few years ago. Then as we come across to the right, we have these Roger Mayer 456, which kind of emulate tape. Really like those on overheads, and sometimes they can work nicely on guitars as well. As we come down to the second 500 series rack, again, this is full of some more DIY gear. So we start off with the Garage G10s, and these are basically API 560s. I pretty much always use these on kick and snare, so I've got those labelled up. And then after that, I've got Link Audio Brown EQ, which again, a DIY. Obviously, looking at these, you can tell they're a clone of the SSL Brown EQ. And again, I'm pretty much using those on drums, and they pretty much stay patched across the same things all the time. If we come over to the other side of the desk, so on this side it starts off with effects, a couple of the old Line 6 units. That delay is still one of my favourite delays. Modulation gets used occasionally if we're searching for something and we want to get a bit more hands-on. Patch bays, everything's pretty much patchable everywhere in this studio. Then we come down to a couple of different 1176 clones. So we've got the Hairball Audio Rev D on top there, and then we have the Backline Audio Bluey below that. Coming down underneath those, I've got two bus compressors. So I've got the Serpent Audio SB4000, which I've had for years. That was on mixed bus duties for a long time, and then more recently I've actually built my own SSL clone. It pretty much sits over my mixed bus all the time and just does what it needs to do. Coming down, we've then got the DBX 160Xs, generally using those on kick or snare. Classic units, absolutely love them. And then we're down into Empirical Labs world. So I've got the Fatso, which I use on guitar sometimes, and usually it is sat across a drum bus. I like that as a parallel crush when I'm mixing. And then down to my favourite compressors in the world. These are definitely my desert island compressors, the distressors. They just work on everything. They can be super aggressive, they can be super transparent. Everybody needs a pair, I think. And then these are also the Britmod versions, which also have the additional stereo link option. If we move down on this little rack, we have the Mac Studio. We've also got the UAD, I think that's the Octo. I'm trying to go as native as possible with UAD plugins at the moment, but there's still a few that I need that box for. Coming down to this rack here, I've got Lynx Aurora conversion. They're the older ones, but they sound great. Recently, I've added this new RAM monitoring system to control my monitors. And then I've also got the Audioscape Opto compressor, which sounds absolutely fantastic. Something that's really cool that we added in whilst we're wiring up is this XLR patch panel. So you can patch your mics from the live room to anywhere on the desk or to any of the preamps. It's really good just to make sure you're not going to short stuff if they're on a Bantam, and it just makes the whole space really practical for patching microphones in absolutely anywhere. Monitoring in this room is handled with the ATC SCM 25As, which are a recent addition, and they are absolutely incredible monitors. I don't think I've ever been so happy with a monitor in my life before. So this is the live room. As I said in the pod, this room's based around a dead end and live end concept. Down here is a dead end with plenty of absorption, and then up at this end of the room we've got the slate wall, which gives a nice lively feel. Up towards the top of the room as well, we have these bad panels, just to kind of make things a little bit more balanced. And then we've got the big bass trap soffits all the way around the room. At some point I'm going to add maybe some diffusion and possibly some more absorption to the ceiling, but that's a work in progress. Obviously in here I've got my guitars stored, selection of snares, house drum kit, which is a Tama Star Classic, and we've got a variety of sizes of toms there. Also got a couple of cabs, and then at the back of the room here I've got a production case that I use as a mic locker, where I've got kind of all of my microphones stashed. So yeah, that's my spot.